Wednesday morning here, and I'm all prepped for the next mortar section. There's a hole that goes down to the garage here, so I kind of did some rocks so that the cats have a special access tunnel, a kitty tunnel, to get from this room over to the garage, which the dogs can't use, but it'll probably lead to some critters getting through there as well. But we'll deal with that in time. I rearranged these rocks so that they can be formed into kind of a staircase going up. Though I still have a bit more to do about figuring out where all the water goes and everything. But anyways, time for some mortar. After a bit of mortar, got more connecting up top. Most of the bottom part finished. And I think that's all for over here for today because there's rain forecasted later. And time for breakfast, and I'll figure out what I'm going to do next. Probably over to those tires. It rained a bit. This is after a third coat of mortar on this section. And now it's about as mortared as the... well, probably even more mortared than the area right next to it. But I didn't do any tire stuff, just a little more mortar over here. And over here, I put some lath up. Oh, sounds like we're getting buzzed. Can you see it? No. So over here, I put up some lath above this section. This was just a gap. And so the lath is tied to the remesh. The lath is the diamond shaped sheet of metal. The remesh are the 6" by 6" squares, and kind of up here you can see how they interact. There's different dimensions, but I use the remesh squares first to make the shape, and then attach the lath to the remesh with either wire ties or zip ties, and then the mortar can be applied, and it has double structural. The metal gives it tensile strength, so it can so it doesn't pull, or so it has pulling strength, or like, yeah, it can't pull. And then cement has the compressive strength, and if it's in the right geometry, this combo with very little material can be very strong. So here's the area. This was all done last year, but here's an area where it doesn't have the inside layer of mortar. So you see what it looks like with just mortar on from the outside. So you can still see the remesh and the wire ties. And basically just gotta whack off anything that sticks out, like the metal on a tie, or like right here, or like some of these, you just have to like take those off and then smear a coat of mortar over it, and then it's a big old rock that's got a thin layer of rock in a geometric shape, which is reinforced with metal. So I just thought I'd explain that. So anyways, yeah, over here I just got one coat on earlier, and it's basically, it's like dry. It'll still like rub off a little bit, but it has enough strength there to be able to take a second coat, as long as the coat is wet enough and I don't push very hard. So I'm going to do a second coat on that. But this raspberry here is fruiting, having all this fruit, so I'm not going to cut the raspberry plant until it's fruited. And I still might not even have to. Well, I'll have to at some point. And then that one over there, the same thing, except I don't know if it's fruiting. I think it's fruiting, but yeah, anyways, I'm gonna do this. Look at this turd. The barbarians invaded, a whole horde of them. They penetrated all the way into the entry hall. If I hadn't have fought them off, they would have proceeded to the water feature where they surely would have been stopped somehow. Luckily I drove them forth, but they left this behind. So I made some more rock progress in here, in this tunnel area. The left side is just about got coverage on all of it. Just this little bit around the raspberry bush I haven't covered up. And there's some fresh stuff and some holes there. That's just the first coat and first coverage, but I got lath into these holes to connect the rock from the ground to the ceiling. And then over here, this is how this special cat tunnel is looking. It's like a little secret tunnel. And I think I've got all this mortar sloped enough to drain, but I'll probably have to do one more coat until it really is ready to drain. But this that hole is filled, this hole is filled. Basically the holes between this area and the garage structure are mostly filled, except for this cool cat tunnel here where you can go through and go into the next room. Just big enough for a kitty. So I've gotten a little bit flustered with the variety of projects, which tends to happen this time of year. The gate tower, the water feature, this tire project, this thing up by the visor, and other projects. Mortar everywhere. But I'm back on track now. I figured out that the goal right now is basically, it's all about drainage for this section. So I've got the ground pretty much all mortared and mostly all got it all addressed to run off. There's a pool here and a couple issues to still get to. But what I'm going to focus on is resolving the whole drainage of this area, as well as up in that visor area. So what I'm going to do is, see these tires here, there's a little bit I got to do in that valley, but then these tires here which have things growing out of them, I'm going to cut all that out, and then I'm going to cap the tires with stone and mortar so that the tires can no longer absorb water, and then the water will all run off. And we're going to have to do something about a depression there. So I'm going to have to backfill that or do something. But anyways, over here, this section is just about finished. Because the original mortar was waterproofed, I'm going to have to apply silicone because it won't bond watertight between the new one and the old one. But all this is very close. But basically the idea is just reorienting on my primary purpose right now is getting this whole section here resolved for the water runoff. So here's all of the prep with the stone on the tires and into the corner too. So now I'm gonna wet it down and start mortaring. So after about 3 batches, you got coverage on all of the tires, and then even on the back ones. Maybe 4 batches? I don't know, 3 or 4. So I'm gonna take a break, and then I'll come back and do more after. So end of the day, Friday. It's probably getting a little bit difficult to tell what the new work completed is, but got more and more coverage and fixing the water runoff issues. And look at that, it's starting to rain right now, right after I did all the mortar. How about that for timing? So it's Sunday morning here up on the visor, and that's how this area turned out. Right now I'm working on this depression here, which is kind of the last big obstacle to figure out drainage for this whole section essentially. So I've been adding insulation up against that structure and adding stone into the valley, mortared up the backside, and I'm going to go get some materials to be able to finish this up and hopefully get it all filled up today. I got 6 small goldfish today to go into this water feature and start eating the mosquitoes. There's just enough water in the water feature for them, but it's got a long ways to go until it gets up to the drain pipe. And I'm gonna release them now. So there they are. It's now officially a stocked water feature. And you can see, well, I don't know if you can see, but there are lots of mosquito larvae in here already. It's kind of hard to see, but there are lots of little things moving around in there. So they're gonna have lots of food. They'll be busy eating skeeters. Right now they're like, oh my gosh, this is way bigger than anything I could have ever imagined. Look how big it is. That's all. It is the following day, Monday morning, and just checking on the fishes. So there's 6, 3 gold ones and 3 brownish ones. And this is their first night in the outdoors, away from PetSmart fish tank. So the 3 golden ones, I've seen 3 golden ones and I've seen 1 brown one. But the brown ones are a little bit harder to spot because they blend in better. They're a little more camouflaged. But it seems like they're all doing well in their new environment, which is nice. And my goal for the last day of this work week is to get some mortar on this whole wall here and clean up this little kind of area where the cords go through. But mostly is to complete this whole depression thing here. So I'm going to bring up some insulation and put it up against the side of the tunnel, and I'm going to bring up, and then I'm going to foam the insulation together. I'm going to bring up stone to be a layer up against the insulation, and then I'll bring up dirt to backfill the rest, and then top it all off with stone, and then mortar that so that the water flows seamlessly from there and from the tires over to here so that it can connect to this drain pipe here. So that's the goal for today. So this is like a third of a panel of a insulation panel, just kind of broken up. There's some stone holding it in place, and otherwise there's these things just kind of jammed up there. So the idea is to just get 2 inches of insulation in between this area and the structure, which will also help with compression if there's any freezing. So now I gotta foam that and then backfill. My back is a bit sore between my shoulder blades, but after bringing up many buckets of dirt and stone through that labyrinth, down, up, dodge the raspberry bushes, make the turn. Anyways, this is just about ready for mortar, but I gotta take a break before it's mortar time. But look at that, pretty great, huh? Got stone all the way up to the edge, got dirt for the rest of it, and then stone on top so I can do this final mortar show. This is where I'm getting the stone and the dirt from. For a little perspective here, this stone pile was like 13 plus tons in spring, and now it's just down to probably a yard or so. And the dirt, I dug out a whole bunch of buckets from right here, right by this gate. So the gate was pretty close to the ground. So I dug out some extra space because at some point I'm going to put mortar stone, concrete, whatever in the ground there, so that can be secured on the bottom as well as the top. And here is the route I've had to carry all this through. It's like through this labyrinth, basically. It gets really narrow around there and these steps. And anyways, just for perspective. Took about 2, maybe 2.5 bags of mortar, I guess. But got all the stone covered. So there's the entry hole for the drain. And I'm pretty sure it's all sloped so that this whole area will shed water to that drain. And then some of the EPDM folds down over the cement, the mortar, concrete, whatever. It's well, yeah. So that it sheds, but it will need a final coat, but it's looking like it might rain, so that's all for this area for today. But yeah, it was a great day. So that's all for this week. I think I've got about maybe 1 week left on that whole area until it gets to as finished as I want it. So that'll probably be the next week, but maybe I'll get distracted and diverted and onto something else again. But if you want to communicate, you can. There's links for Telegram in the description. If you want to donate and support what I'm doing here, you can with Bitcoin Cash. The donation address is in the description as well. And otherwise, that's all for this week. Thanks for watching.